I've had some discussions with the VA after applying for disability, service-related disability for knees, back, and hip problems after my time in the service. And then I thought maybe one thing would be to provide an example of some of the equipment we had back in the 80s, because maybe some of the folks that are working on these disability requests today don't know of some of the equipment we had back then. Because really my request was turned down initially because I didn't go on sick call or visit doc during the time that I was in the military. And so there was no medical records. There was nothing to say that you hurt your back or your knee or your hip while you're in the military. But I don't know if the folks today know that some of the boots that we had back in the late 80s that had no insoles, those same boots we actually wore and trained for 2-mile runs for air assault school. So I don't know if those things were known, and I really don't know if they know how tough and hard those boots actually are. So I thought what I would try to do is put together a quick demonstration to kind of talk about or actually show some of those boots and how tough and hard they are, and maybe provide some additional information for those people that are actually working on disability requests, not only for me, but for other soldiers that served back in that time. And maybe they didn't visit sick call or visit the hospital, and they're kind of facing those same problems, and they're saying, why do my knees, back, and hips hurt today? Well, maybe it's because of the equipment you had back in the 80s and 90s that was a bit inferior based on what you had to do. I mean, imagine taking a 25-mile road march in something like this. This is the jungle boot that we wore when I was assigned to the 25th Division. It's pretty firm, if you can hear that. Super hard plastic. This is actually the pair that I wore. And I think the insole is probably still in here. If I can fish it out of here. This is the insole. You can probably see how thin that is. That's our cushion. There's no other cushion in this boot. That's it. So what you have between your knees and hips is this. Not a lot. So this is what we wore on 25-mile road marches, wearing full combat gear. Sometimes on asphalt, hardball road. And this is what helped cushion our feet. So, and at the same time, this is the exact same gear that we wore training for air assault when we ran the 2-mile run. We wore this same boot with this same insole. So the question is, how hard is this? So I thought maybe I could give a brief demonstration. This is a nail, right? Pliers. Let's see if we can pound this nail in here. No problem. Pretty easy. I could take it the rest of the way in if I needed to. No damage to the sole. So that's how hard that boot is. You could drive a nail with this boot. That's how hard the sole is. And not even, well, you can see, that's where I hit the nail. But there's no damage to the sole. So this thing is super hard. And this is what we wore day in, day out. And this was our cushion. This is what we trained for road marches in. This is what we trained on the road in. This is what we wore every day to work. This is what we walked to and from. Was this boot right here. We also sometimes wore this boot, which was a standard issue combat boot. This is what I started service in. You can see it's probably time to get that thing rehealed. And it too probably should have started this ahead of time. Has a super nice insole. Exact same thing. No more cushion. Same hardness. maybe a little softer. It does actually show a little bit more pliability, whereas this doesn't show much pliability. Of course, if you think about it, these were probably from the 70s, maybe even the 60s, sat in the warehouse for quite a while before we were issued them in the 25th Division in 1984, 5, or 6, somewhere around there. So maybe that's where we got them. But they're not quite as pliable, a little harder. Let's just see. Yeah. You can still drive a nail with this one too. A little more on the sole, you can see it, but you can easily drive a nail. You know, today's boots are a lot more like this one. This really isn't, of course, a combat boot, but I've seen a couple of the soldiers when I was at Fort Knox the other day, and they're wearing boots that are extremely flexible, very pliable, have super nice insoles, nice, super soft, cushy insoles. Plus they have cushion built into the heel. I don't think you could drive a nail with this. You could try. Yeah, we can at least get it started. But you'd be hard pressed to get the nail the rest of the way in. These things are just too soft. The bottom line is, I think we need to take into consideration the footwear of the soldier during that time when we look at their request for disability compensation. You know, what we wore during the 80s was a whole lot different than what they wear today. And I think our mindset is we get stuck in what's going on today and don't think about what went on yesterday and totally forget that soldiers were running around in this boot with this insole and carrying 65 pounds of combat gear and battle rattle around, or running 2 miles, or just going on a nice leisurely 4-mile road march with this on the hard surface road. You know, knees and hips and backs don't take kindly to that type of impact time over time over time. So that was really the demonstration I wanted to show, was that the footwear that we had back then was a whole lot different than the footwear we had today. And I thought we should take that into consideration as we look at these requests from soldiers from that time, from that era.